Hello and welcome back to my channel. I have an hour to myself in this house, so I thought I'd be productive and make a video. I've got a lot of ideas going around my head since coming back from the US in terms of content I want to talk about that I hope will be helpful for anyone else that's looking to travel that may or may not have some sort of health issue that might provide some difficulties during that travel or things that make them nervous about travelling. And so today's one I wanted to talk about being in a group scenario when you're on holiday. Even though about a third of, maybe half actually, of this holiday was just Si and I and doing a road trip, because we were there primarily for Ben and Jen's wedding, there was an army of us from the UK that were in America at the same time, so we could attend the wedding. So there were of course lots of group activities, and there were times when we were staying in the same place and it was more of a group holiday. And I think if you suffer from any illness, whether it's a mental health illness or a physical illness or one that kind of sandwiches them both together in a very complicated fashion, it will offer up some things that make it a bit daunting. You'll worry about how you get on should some of the symptoms worsen when you're in a group scenario, should the activities that are on the agenda be difficult for you specifically, lots of other reasons. But I just wanted to talk about this today because I don't think I've seen a video about this, and I was very worried about it, very nervous about it. And although I don't think I'm going to offer up any particular solutions in this video, I think it might be helpful if we all come together in the comments, talk about our individual concerns, our unique concerns, and things that we've personally found have helped us when we have been in that group scenario on a trip or while holidaying. I think though, even if you don't have a health issue, if you're an introvert, which I am, group holidays can be daunting in another sense, because I am someone that really needs alone time quite regularly actually, just to, I don't know, centre myself, just to have some peace and quiet, just to collect my thoughts, just because I think when I'm in any sort of group scenario there is always a level of anxiety or worrying about what people are thinking, whether I'm saying the right thing, whether I'm doing the right greetings, then worrying that I'm being too quiet, and then if I overcompensate, what if they think I'm too loud and obnoxious, oh I spoke over them, they're going to think I'm rude, I didn't contribute to that conversation, people are going to think I'm boring. All these sorts of things go around in my head. So it's just nice for me to have some time on my own where I can just, like, whether it's editing photos, I find that relaxing, whether it's just watching some Netflix, whether it's doing some meditation. It's really important for me to do that regularly, just to, I don't know, maintain some level of okayness, I guess. And I was worried that, you know, in a group scenario that wouldn't be possible, but we'll go into that a bit more later. But group holidays, what I've learned over the years is there's not one format for a group holiday. A group holiday could be loads of people. For instance, I went to Ibiza with 17 people, mainly boys. I think there was like, I don't know, 80% boys. And I had a great time, and they looked after me really well when I was unwell or tired. And yeah, it was all round quite good. Of course, there was the issues that come with any group holiday, that, like, if you're someone that gets ready really fast, like I am, I'm always waiting for people that take a bit longer to get ready, and that can be frustrating. I'm someone that likes to get up early in the morning and enjoy most of the day, and some people like a lion. So those things are the norm. The more you do these group holidays, you kind of learn what works for you, whether you're good in like a big group or whether you work better when it's just a smaller intimate group, whether you're good on couples holidays or not, whether it's better to go with people that know you really well, so they're completely aware and understanding of your health issues and anything that might crop up during your stay, and that you don't feel awkward around if they do pop up. or you don't feel awkward speaking to if you do have an issue, or whether you're better with, you know, on press trips when you're with people that maybe you don't know too well and you enjoy meeting new people and you know, learning to bump along with them on a trip. My issue always with sort of group trips that I haven't had control over, so like work trips for instance, because I don't drink and because I get tired, I often opt out of the late night event, whether it be like them going clubbing after dinner or staying up to have some drinks following the group dinner. So I will miss out on probably some of the most memorable and funny parts of the trip, and then at breakfast they'll all be talking about it. So to an extent I always feel slightly on the outskirts and slightly out of the group because I've missed out on those things. And on most trips are because I've gone to bed early, or I've got tired, so I've taken myself up to a quieter place or done something differently because I can't join in the activity. I often miss out on the group photos, which when you're looking back over your holiday pictures or your press trip pictures, it's a shame when you're not in any of the group ones, and that feels sad, but it's kind of the payoff for you deciding to look after yourself and to listen to your body and take yourself away from a situation that is maybe not helpful to you. In general, with group trips, group holidays, whether they're for work or for pleasure with friends or acquaintances, you almost have to, I think it's important anyway, to find a level of acceptance that on this trip you may not tick off your personal wish list of things you want to do, things you want to see, or how you want to enjoy the trip. You have to accept that there'll be a level of compromise, and if you go with that mindset, you're less likely to be disappointed because that's how it's going to be, and you know that's how it's going to be. Another important point I want to make is just because they're one of your closest mates or your best mates or the person you have the most fun with when you're back home in your normal life, it doesn't mean they're going to make the best travel buddy for you. I've been on numerous holidays with friends over the years, and someone that might be who you think is your kindred spirit or the person that you're most like or the person that you get on with the most, when it comes to travel, you might just have different juju or whatever you want to call it. You might have different priorities, you might have different body clocks, you just might have a different approach to holidaying, and that's okay. So I just want to say, be open to who you consider traveling with. Don't necessarily go for the obvious choice. Sometimes it's that person you don't see regularly who is actually on the same wavelength as you when it comes to holiday. They want to rise at the same time. Perhaps if you're someone that likes a chilled holiday just on the beach, they do too. If you're an adventurer, someone that likes a challenge, someone that's sporty and outdoorsy, that might not be your best friend in your real life, but you might have that acquaintance or slightly more distant friend that you know would do that with you on a holiday, and you'd have a great time doing so. So I'm just saying, be open to holidaying with other people and trying it out, because you might find you'll be very surprised about who turns out to be, you know, a really good holiday buddy for you. And again, I just want to reiterate the point about there not being one way to do a group holiday, and yeah, it might take a bit of trial and error to work out what is the best sort of way to do it for you. But for instance, when I went to New York a couple of years ago, you might remember the vlogs, we went with Zoe and Fraser, and at that point we were meeting the boys in New York because they'd been recording over there for a number of weeks. It might have even been months, I'm not sure. So we hadn't seen them for a while. So on that holiday, even though we were sharing an Airbnb apartment in Brooklyn, we went off and did our own things for a large chunk of the time, in part because this was my first time in New York and I wanted to do some of the cheesy touristy things that some of the other guys had already ticked off the list and they don't really need to do again. And they wanted to do things like, you know, go to shops, go to exhibitions, have a mooch around. They didn't have the pressure of wanting to tick everything off the list like I did. And also because when you're apart from your partner, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to readjust to being a couple again. So it was important that both of us as couples had time alone to just get to know each other again in a weird way, and have alone time, reconnect and all that sort of stuff, and have just cute couple time. So it worked out really well that we go off and do our own thing, but come together again for a few dinners, going out for pizza, Went to a sex museum one day, went to Coney Island another day, and that worked really well. So I think it's important to remind you that even if it's a group scenario or a couple's holiday, you don't need to be in each other's pockets the whole time. And actually it can work out quite well if, while your base is connected together, you don't have to do every activity together. You can go off and, you know, choose how you holiday, and it doesn't have to impact the other person too much. So that's quite a nice way of doing it. In terms of issues that became a problem on this holiday, so the first thing that was quite daunting to me personally was shared toilets. So in one of the Airbnbs I booked, we went for the private room rather than the entire home, just because the place looks so great. We thought, for this one, we'll go for a private room. It would never be my ideal choice. But our room didn't come with an ensuite, so that meant sharing it with some other Airbnbers that were staying at the same property. And that, if you've got a belly as bad as mine, and now I have obviously the bladder and kidney issues on top of that, and I was on my period, that offers up a lot of stress for me, because I often have to go multiple times in the night, so I was very conscious that I didn't want to wake people up all the time. Sometimes I have to be in the toilet for like half an hour at a time, and when you know that people might be waiting outside or knocking on the door or hearing you, yeah, it made me feel a little bit stressed, I'm not going to lie, and that slightly tainted my experience. Overall, the time at that particular Airbnb, which you will have seen in a recent vlog, was so magical that it would never have ruined it, but it definitely was on my mind and something that bothered me. And you never know how, you know, the amplification of that particular bathroom, whether it's just going to kind of microphone any sounds that you make to the whole house, how close it's going to be to other people's bedrooms. There's lots of things that arise if you have stomach issues, toilet issues, in those sorts of scenarios. And then in the Airbnb in Joshua Tree, our room didn't have an ensuite, and that was quite right, because we put no effort into booking it and the other guys did, so they should most definitely have the ensuite rooms, quite right. But it did make me slightly nervous, and as a result I ended up actually being constipated, because I think my body got so much kind of stage fright. And it's, as much as I hate having diarrhea all the time, constipation is uncomfortable when you're walking around with a bloated tummy in your bikini, so you feel a bit self-conscious about that. But luckily Zoe was so lovely, and I went and spoke to her, and I explained that I've got a bit of stage fright, I haven't gone to loo since I've been here, and she let me use her one, which was kind of away from the main part of the house and kind of tucked away within their bedroom, so I felt like it was private enough and enclosed enough that I could relax. But Si just said to me, why don't you say this at the beginning rather than stress yourself out? But I think if you have any health problems, you're so conscious that, one, you don't want to always be the one that's different, so you don't want to voice that you need some sort of special attention or special consideration. Two, you don't want to be a burden, and you also don't want to come off as if you're being difficult or diva-ish by having these special requests. And so I'm so conscious of not saying anything, but in the end it always turns out that it would have been less faff and less hassle if I just said it initially. But I think for a lot of us, we're constantly having to expose all this personal stuff about us, and sometimes you don't want to just be talking about your diarrhea to people just so you're comfortable. You don't want to have to explain all this stuff all the time, so sometimes you just go, oh, I'll just suck it up, I'll get on with it. But in the end, like I said, more faff because you keep your mouth shut. Anyway, after that I was running smoothly, shall we say. So another issue I had was we did a kind of a nighttime road expedition of Joshua Tree, so we could see some of the sights, step out and take some photos. And we were in one of those cars where there's lots of seats, and then you kind of have to crawl in the back to be in the back part of the seat, and then because there's only one sliding, there's only one sliding door. I can't think of the name of those cars or the number of doors they have, but anyway, you get what I mean. And I was in the back, and so every time we stopped to take some pictures or get out and see a viewpoint, I would have to climb out of a very tight thing, and each time I was doing it I was dislocating my hip, because I've got these dodgy hips because of, we'll go into that in another video, and it was getting increasingly painful the more times I did it, and again, I didn't say anything, but of course I shouldn't have sat myself at the back of the car, because of course getting out of that tight spot and positioning my hips in that way of course wasn't going to do me any favours. But again, I kept quiet, because I didn't want to be that diva who goes, I'm not sitting in the back, I'm only going to sit in that seat. I just didn't want to do that, but again, I should have. On the whole, I think generally I coped quite well on holiday. My health was surprisingly okay. I didn't in the end take my antibiotics for my kidney infection. I managed to save them for when it's worse, which I don't know if it's the wise thing to do, but my bladder wasn't bad enough that I felt the need to resort to taking the antibiotics that the doctor had given me. And on the whole, my IBS wasn't too bad. I'd say the worst thing was the leg pain this holiday and fatigue, but on the whole it was manageable. But there was one particular day, it was really near the end of the holiday, and it was when the whole group was together and we were in Malibu, and I, like I said, was on my period. A lot of my chronic fatigue symptoms have flared up. I was so tired to the point of not being able to keep my emotions together, and me and Said had an argument. So I had to kind of go down and see the whole group, and I just lost the ability to put on a brave face that day, and I actually got more upset that I wasn't able to put on a brave face that day. I was disappointed at myself. I was frustrated because I knew that me not being able to hide it that day was making other people probably feel awkward or uncomfortable or affecting their day, and I didn't want to be that miserable presence on what should have been a very happy day in Malibu at the beach. I was trying desperately to cover it up after the initial morning greeting, but I didn't do a great job at all, and I kept falling asleep on the beach, because that's another thing. We had set up a place on the beach further down, and then found out the group was, I don't know, a certain distance up the beach, which meant having to walk on the beach to meet them. And by that point I was already exhausted, and I knew that walk on the beach would be enough to mean that I probably wouldn't enjoy the rest of the day because it would tire me out. Like I've said before, these are nice, understanding people. I should have just said, look guys, I'm feeling very unwell, a bit emotional, a bit exhausted, please don't take it personally. But instead I probably created a weird vibe, which then upset me further and probably tarnished their day, and then I felt guilty about that. So lesson learned, next time I'll just be honest about it. But like I said, when these people aren't necessarily the people that are aware of your health conditions or don't know the intricacies of them, like they might know, oh, she gets tired every so often, they might not know the other things you're dealing with that are connected to that, and you don't always want to go into detail about it. Or I just don't like having the focus on me, so I don't like it having to talk about me and what's going on with me, particularly in a group setting. So it's hard to find the balance of doing what's sensible and informing people and making people aware, but not putting yourself in a position where you're draining yourself, having to explain everything all the time. So that's a difficult balance to strike, I think. Things that I've learned from group scenarios is, like, usually when you're arranging some sort of trip, there will be some sort of email thread or WhatsApp group, and I think next time what I would do is just mention in there, be like, guys, there will be times where I might be a little bit quiet, I might be a little bit emotional, I might be running to the toilet or taking some time out. Please don't take it personally. this is me just trying to manage my energy levels or manage with some of the symptoms. Please don't take it personally, but just be aware that this might be going on. Don't worry, etc. I think it's just good to establish that, because I think a lot of my stress of the group scenarios comes from me worrying what people are thinking, whether they're thinking I'm being antisocial because I'm going to bed early or deciding to opt out of something and stay in my room and rest. But like I said, most people are very understanding and very nice, and they wouldn't be thinking that, but I just have the sort of brain that is slightly paranoid, I guess, and just assumes people are thinking the worst of me. So knowing that about myself, I think it would help me a lot by just saying that. I won't necessarily go into deep details. I'll say, like, I don't want to tell someone that I see twice a year, particularly about my bowel habits, perhaps. But I'll just give them enough information that they'll understand that it's not that I don't want to spend time with them, not that I'm not having a good time, I'm just looking after myself. And I think establishing with the group you're going with what kind of holiday you're after can avoid any difficulties that could arise if you're on different pages. So if you're thinking of going with some people, say if you're looking for a relaxed holiday, if you're looking for one that's full of walking and trekking and outdoor activities, say that. If you're someone that will only want to go to restaurants with vegan dishes or menus, then make that clear. These sorts of things will just avoid any sort of rubbing together or difficulty when you're on the trip, I guess. And for instance, if there is an issue for you in terms of like you need something in your room, or you need to be near a toilet, or you need to sit on a certain seat, or have certain help where you're on the holiday, I think voicing that and making that clear as well from the offset is important, particularly if it impacts other people in a certain way. And I think you've got to ask yourself whether you realistically you are only going to enjoy the holiday if you are with people that are completely aware of your situation, understanding of it, and will be able to help you if needed. Because if you are going to be completely stressed the whole time because you're around people that maybe aren't aware of what you're going through, then maybe it's not going to feel much of a holiday. I don't know, that's a personal thing. It'd be interesting to see what you think below, whether you're more likely to go with people that don't know, so you can feel just like you rather than someone that has an illness, and whether you like that feeling of people not being aware and you just trying your best to, you know, be normal and do what everyone else is doing, or whether it provides you some sort of ease and stress reduction if you know that the people are with you are completely aware of what you're coping with and can maybe help adapt scenarios that will make it more comfortable to you and more sympathetic to your needs. So it'd be interesting to see which slant you guys take with that, whether you like to forget or try and forget and just do your best and just hope for the best, or whether you want people that will just make it as seamless and as easy, as stress-free as possible. Anyway, I've talked enough about myself. I do want to say though, as stressful as some moments of group holidays can be, they do provide some very magical moments, like as unwell as I felt in Malibu that day, when we were all lined up on the beach, looking down at the ocean, seeing the dolphins leap out of the water. Sharing that moment together there's something really lovely about that, and it's a memory that will kind of bind us for the rest of our life, and there's something quite romantic and sentimental about that I love. Same with Joshua Tree, when we're looking out on that amazing view and seeing the sunset together, was really special. So yeah, I would say give them a go, but just try and tailor them in a way that will make it as enjoyable and stress-free as possible. Anyway, I'm still talking, I will never shut up. Anyway, let's chat in the comments. I'm sure there's lots to say. Give me your opinions, blah, blah, blah. Yes. Hope this was helpful, or at least cathartic to at least voice, vocalise, talk about, and I'll see you in another video soon.